Welcome to the show with no name. I'm Renee Gartner and I'm joined by co-host Reni Maitua today, and our guest that is joining us as well. I wouldn't be here without him, and we're going to dive into a bit of a mental health chat along the way. And aside from his greatest achievement being on the show with no name, he lists playing for Australia, his state for Queensland, winning a premiership, and also being the reason that players now get fined for fighting on the field. Please welcome Benny Ross.
How you going, guys?
Good, hey? Welcome to the potty.
Thank you.
Pretty exciting stuff for you. Obviously, as I said, this is a peak career moment.
Peak, definitely. It's up there. Yeah, we're just talking about I needed a new high, and this is it. Definitely.
Now, you and Reni crossed paths pretty early in your career, I think, because you debuted with St George. That's where it all started for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
What year did you debut?
2002, maybe.
Because we played against each other in the 02 reserve grade grand final.
Yeah.
You, the light bulb.
Yeah.
Chris Nero.
Yeah.
He's had a stacked team.
Oh, stacked team, and we should have won.
Yeah.
What happened?
Thurston
I
happened.
was going to say that. I was going to say he came into his own. He was just,
freak.
mate, this skinny little run. I thought I wanted to put my hands and just break him, and I just couldn't get near him.
Yeah, he kicked it from the sideline.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's typical JT things.
Typical me. I broke my ankle in the first 5 minutes.
How many times have you broken your ankle?
I've lost count. At least 5 or 6 times. Yeah.
That's wild.
Yep.
Because were you only at St George for the one season?
I was there for 5 before, but only 1 in first grade. Yeah.
Right, okay.
So I was, pretty, that point in your time, and as you know, like you sort of go, okay, well, here's a chance to upgrade my contract, see where I want to go, and I was lucky enough to choose Penrith.
Yeah.
So.
And first year at Penrith, first game, there was a very awkward moment with Gordon Tallis.
Awkward, yeah, you could call it that. It's one of those, you talk about sliding door moments.
Yeah.
Like it's always those things that you sort of, from one coach, you always say never back down from a player. Like if someone tries to pick you, and other people say, hey, respect your elders. And I'm like, in between, I'm like, shit, here's Gordon Tallis, someone I've always idolised, looked up to, and he's mouthing off at me. What am I going to do? So I elbowed him back, gave him a bit of gobful, and the rest is history.
Next thing he starts uppercutting.
It didn't end well.
I didn't end well at all. I tried to run. Like, you see me try to get away, and he just went, nah, you're done.
Yeah.
Like, you talk to Tony Pullator about it. He's standing right next to us, and he's like, I wasn't stepping in. I was way too scared. We're all there, and he's sitting there just holding his hands up going, nah.
Yeah, I had my own incident with Gordy in 04. I remember someone like picked me up by the back of the shorts, full wedgie, atomic wedgie, like bad. I go, whoever this is, he's getting the biggest punch in the face, and then played the ball, looked up, it was Gordy, and I just patted him on the back. So good tackle, Gordy.
Thank you.
Thanks, mate.
I've spoken to so many guys about that, and they say they look at him and his eyes are rolling in the back of his head, and you're just like, nah, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, he's not the raging bull for nothing.
Yeah.
What was it like? Because it was literally back of the jersey and just uppercutting by the end of it, really.
Yeah, so I knew I had, and you weren't really thinking, but I always knew they had a long reach. So if I held him away, he wasn't able to hit me. And he did. He threw about 100 punches and missed pretty much straight front of my nose every time. I was like, the boys that weekend, remember the old VCRs used to pause, and the boys would pause, look at that, look at that, and they just kept stopping. I was like, oh, man. But he got me one good one and split my face open,
Because that was the reason, that's why I sort of alluded to it at the start of the show, that Gallup ended up stepping in, and because up until that point, players were not fined for fights on the field. Yeah,
that was all applauded, and which I love. Like, I'm a parent now, and you look at the brutality of fighting, but mate, rugby league is built on that.
Yeah.
It's built on brutality and man's game. Like, women are in the game now, but it's physically dominance, and whether it was some of the shots we see at the moment or whatever, it's sort of those things we miss. I actually miss that part of the game.
Well, the boys were only talking about it when we had Birdie on, and if you haven't watched the episode with Birdie, make sure you check it out on our podcast on YouTube and also now on Spotify. But the boys were speaking about how, Birdie's words, I miss the violence. Like, you spend your whole life learning to be hit, tackle, everything's so physical, and then when you finish, you don't have an outlet for what you've had ingrained in you for so long.
And that's it. And Birdie's one of the best that you ever would see. That I remember getting head high, waking up, being unconscious, looking up, and Birdie's over top of me belting the other fella. Like, he just wanted to have a fight. So God love him.
It's that primal instinct, right? It's been going. It's our genetic makeup. You know, it goes back well before the Colosseum days.
Yeah.
Right? As men, I think most women too.
Guilty.
I've been hit by a few women in my time. But it is that primal instinct. It's something you'll never lose. It's that competition and, that not so much violence,
Yeah.
but stamping your authority.
Yeah, and masculinity, those type of things.
Yeah.
Like you want to feel like you're dominant in some type of way. And that's why guys, I think, choose the outlet of rugby league. And I'm looking down the avenue now and going, okay, well, my kids are playing it and they can't tackle until they're 8. There's no competition till 13. All these type of things. I'm thinking, what direction are we going with sport?
What are your thoughts on that?
If you choose your kid to play rugby league, you're choosing them to play tackle, and you know what's going to happen. But my big thing it's about competition and sport. You've got to learn to win and lose.
Yes.
Well, I don't say lose, but learn.
Yeah.
You got to learn so much. Like my kids, I never let them win against me. Like no matter whether it's computer games or outside or whatever it may be, and you've got to teach them that there's going to be hard knocks in life.
Yeah.
And okay, well, I just lost. What am I going to do to focus on a different mentality and mindset to get better? And it comes every day. Like we're taking it away from our kids, and it is going to be a softer generation.
Yeah, play to win, learn to lose.
Yeah. Yeah.
I find it like not learning the techniques of tackling at a younger age is going to be, we'll see it develop as time goes on. But as kids get bigger and they haven't learned how to, the proper techniques of tackling, we could get more injuries.
Yeah.
So they're doing tag in the South Comp at the moment, the younger kids, and I love to go and watch it, but
But it teaches them to run sideways because they're just running around. And we had a really good focus group. So I had Fafita's young fella, Bo Ryan, Dean's, mine, and a few others. We're all in the one team. And we went back to that tag league for 6 weeks and understanding, okay, well, we're all for it. Yeah, we've got to teach kids how to tackle better and for the whole group. But our kids went backwards because of tag league. They then forgot they were thinking they had to tackle with their hands down because they're used to tagging and running around kids, whereas before they were going through and they were annihilating kids. Like obviously footballers, kids would taught them correctly, but some kids go backwards, some go forward. But, you're right.
Is it losing that fear? Like you sort of have no fear factor when you're a kid, and then sort of it gets more and more as you get older, and you know what injuries are going to come with it.
You do, and you said it. Some kids are big.
Yeah.
So if you're actually being exposed to tackling at ages 9, 10, it's probably too late because you're going to get some big kid who's going to run it. A little fella, it's going to be annihilation.
We see it with the girls now. Like their tackle technique is actually probably a lot better than some of the blokes at the moment because they had to do so much work in such a short period of time to learn those basic fundamentals.
Yeah, it'd also be the speed of the game.
Yeah.
That's probably the big thing is our game's way too quick right now. I'm glad I'm out of it.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be able to last 5 minutes.
Oh, me too. And it's with women's football, like I watch their fundamentals, especially in Origin, and they're far better than some of the men.
Yeah.
You know, because coaching women, they listen. They
they're
take it on
coachable.
board. Yeah, very coachable. Even watching the Origin game, especially in the first one, I was watching it like a shift play and I thought, wow, some of these girls pass better than the men.
Yeah. Yep.
Like I've seen first graders now, especially the forwards could pass in our day.
Yeah.
Now you think of like, what are you doing at training?
Yeah.
You know, so
To run it straight.
Yeah.
just run
It's literally
all the big fellas.
I was like,
One of the hardest guys to tackle.
Was he really?
No.
Why so hard to tackle?
The size of him.
That's just
No,
his head.
We're little now. We're little now.
Yeah.
That is the scary thing.
Yeah.
Like I hate, like you do your old boys days, you're clapping in the tunnel and you see these guys, you're thinking, oh, they're going to run it, and you look up and you just go,
Yeah.
and they're wingers.
They're huge. I went and watched SG ball play under 19s, Bulldogs, and they were bigger than our first grade side when we played. And when we played, you had like TP, Tony Pulatua, you had House, you know, you had the back
Willie.
Brad Thorne, you had Willie, every sort of second team.
You have
Now every team's huge.
Yeah.
and that's it's
My
just
old man's era, he was when he played for Australia and he was in centre, he was 77 kilos.
Yeah.
I was
Like,
at
can you
year 6.
imagine him? Yeah.
Yeah. Steve Folkes played in the back row at 85 kilos, 86 kilos.
Wild. So they're looking at you guys thinking they're big. You're now looking at the next generation thinking you're big. I go and see like the schoolboys footy and stuff like that. And I'm like, what are you eating?
Yeah.
They're huge. The girls and guys, they're so tall and so built and physical. Like it's insane.
The girls are phenomenal.
Yeah.
I'm amazed with, and I sat there last night with my kids watching Origin, and like, Dad, look at their legs. Like they've built, they're strong. It's just like the game has fully changed.
And even to watch the game last night in torrential downpour, like Newcastle, when it rains, you sink, you're in mud. Like they'd be wounded today. But the physicality of it, the way they still were able to adapt their game, like you just watch them start playing shorter balls, and it was pretty incredible aside from the result. And I know Benny's going to be gloating right now.
All the results over this week have been
Yeah,
Dirty
it's a
Queenslander.
somber week for New South Welshmen and women. Yeah.
It was a somber week for NRL men's. I thought that was going to be the best game ever.
Yeah.
It was great for a Queenslander to win, but the game was ruined after 9 minutes.
What would you do differently in that situation?
You can't.
If there's it's a send off.
Yeah, but back in our day, a head-eye tackle was if your arm was above your shoulder going through on someone. If you hit someone low but still hit him in the head, it was like play on. I reckon I copped millions of hits.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things. You can't really change the rules of set in place for it, but for me, don't ruin a game because of something that's happened. Let the judiciary decide it afterwards and suspend him afterwards. Get his punishment after it. Not only have you ruined the TV game, you've ruined the fans that have paid hundreds of dollars to go there.
Yeah.
Instantly, New South Wales were losing, no matter what. Even though they stood up, the game was the right decision.
I was going to say, knowing where the game's at now and how much there is a focus on head contact, that was the right decision.
Yeah, it was totally the right decision, and you never like to see the way it was, but whether they put things in place where those two players go, like obviously Reece Walsh is out, take him off but replace him with someone, and vice versa. And 13 on 13, it's Origin, it's a spectacle.
As a player now watching something like that, so Reece slipped, Suwali sort of still came in at the exact height, which would have probably hit him on the chest and would have been technically a great tackle. How much is that now going to change players' mindset going in? Because that's a split-second decision. There was no chance that he would have had to lower his gravity or pull out of that tackle. No. So now, do they have to change their game? Are you going to be thinking about that on the field? Is that actually a thing that comes into play?
And it would be a player would be thinking about that now. But, back in the day, like we had Stick as a coach. If we didn't go in 100%, he would flog us. We'd have a whole week of getting flogged on the field afterwards. And it's like now talking about the hip drop tackle where Valentine Holmes dived in and he got knocked off the other side. And, okay, next time he might decide not to go in on that because of that suspension or potential suspension. But what would you rather? Let a triumph for your team or get suspended and then get flogged by a coach? Like so many different voices in my head would be going through then. But we're built like, I don't know how many times you were suspended, but I was up like 50 games. I was like ridiculous.
Really? 50?
Oh, I copped a 12 or 12, 2 6s. They're 4 that I know of. Like
they would have been pretty big suspensions for your era because players typically get suspended.
On a spear tackle in one game.
You're an absolute grub, Ross.
And then,
So spear tackle?
I did a spear tackle and elbow in one game, and I remember thinking,
that'll do it.
John Lane goes, you'll be sweet, you'll get off both. And I came out with 12 weeks suspension. I was like,
12 weeks.
12 weeks.
Who was the spear tackle?
I was at Canberra. And I was the middle guy. I wasn't even the bottom or the top. So 2 people flipped him and I went down with him, and so I copped it. Like it was just the old school video, the pause one. They didn't have all the technology. I was just like, really? And the best one was that elbow on Cooper Cronk.
Oh, I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah.
And I reckon that's come from a knockout the week before because I was knocked out for 15 minutes. So my timing and everything was off. And I remember elbowing him and thinking, what have I done? And I went to pick him up and, next thing.
It's a lot of conditioning sessions in that, in that 12 weeks off.
I had Noxie for 8 weeks. Fog every time everyone, I think, were you there then? Was that your year?
Yes.
And every time you were out in the field, I was inside getting flogged. And every time you were inside, I was outside getting flogged.
Yeah.
And then Gal did the rip of the stitches, so I had someone to do it with me.
Yeah.
Mate, this is the fittest I've ever been.
Fittest you've ever been without any football.
We got flogged every day.
Well, because you both had Ricky. Reni said before we came on the episode, he was pretty gnarly with you guys.
Brutal to front rowers.
Brutal. And halfbacks.
Yes.
We used to, like the thing about the Bulldogs, the tackling session.
Yeah.
He used to do that with Blake Green every week.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you don't beat Blake Green, you're running laps. And I'm like, And it's all the forwards are like, what do? We don't want to hurt our halfback.
Yeah.
But we don't want to be running 4 and 5.
We don't want to get flogged.
So you just
So Blake Green didn't play for a couple of weeks.
You just make sure that we get over him without hurting him too much. Yeah.
Wild.
It was hard, eh? And that's what I mean. I love that. I still think about it and go, the fear I had, but I suppose the reward of being physically and mentally tough because of it, I loved it.
Yeah, I don't miss it at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Everybody's like, nope.
Nope. I miss the 2-minute bell. That's all I miss. You know, when you're about to run out in the
Yeah.
stadium, everyone's like hyping up. You run out in front of the crowd.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, the kick. I love the kickoff.
Yeah.
Give me the ball and just first hit. Just
So you took the kickoffs. You
Yeah,
know,
I
whenever I
love
played 5'8", which was rare, but if Thursday was out or Braith was out, I hated going back to be the catcher.
oh, yeah.
And Willie Tonga used to get in my head, go, don't drop it. I'm like, mate, you prick. Yeah, that
Wouldn't
was
you
right.
love to have a little microphone on all your players in the team? Like
Just for the whole
just
game.
for the whole game, just to see the crap, but not let them know. Like it's somewhere I'll put in the jersey without anyone knowing.
Put it on the
and
GPS
just
tracker
see
part.
what it was.
Mate, I used to have to put up with Mace for 3-4 years of my
He was the
career.
best.
Every scrum, he would spray someone.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
The worst he did was he sprayed Campese. Like, we were playing against Canberra, and Campo was going a bit thin on top. So we're packing down the scrum, and he goes to Campo. He says to the whole Canberra pack, will someone get that cat off Campo's head? They're calling him Cat's hair. And the whole Canberra pack laughed. I was like, mate, you're the
So
best.
good.
You're the best.
But I remember he ran over like 3 of our team once. Like Step ran over. I was the last guy. I thought I've got him. He's going to step again, and got me. After he played the ball, he's like, "You piece of shit," you're so weak," and just hammered me. I was like, "All right, here we go." But he just, mate, the best.
Who's someone you would have loved to have mic'd up on your team?
Birdie.
Yeah.
Every day, all gal. Those two, they were ruthless. They didn't care what they said.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
some of the stuff they used to say to Mark Riddell was like the best.
Yeah.
Everyone used to hammer Piggy, but
Yeah.
mate, just some of the things, and I could see them in my head, and I'm like, I wish I could say them on this. It'd be, but
You're
those
welcome
two,
to, yeah.
wish I could.
Yeah.
But it's micing up those two, and I say like, over the last few weeks, a lot of people with Origin coming up, and they used to say, well, what team would you pick? Who would you pick? And they're like the first two people I'd ever pick.
Yeah.
Like, you know that they've always got your back. They're always going to give 100%. And micing it up, like, they would just, whatever it took for them to win, they would win.
Yeah.
And that's, I loved it. I loved it.
I actually dove in at a gal's legs once. You know, what's it called? You know, when you take him out around the knees?
Yeah.
He chased me for a set. I'm going to get you.
Is that a
He was-
cannonball tackle?
Cannonball.
Yeah.
Cannonball, yeah.
Before it was a cannonball.
Yeah.
And he chased me for a set. He was furious. He just, and I'm trying to spray him back while the
But
game's
running.
going on. But I agree with you with Gal. Like, I only played 8 games with him when I was at the Sharks. And, mate, some of the things he'd do on the field, like, you can't put a price on sort of that kind of effort.
Yeah.
And they're the people you want in the trenches.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh, yeah. He wouldn't win a fitness drill, but then you put him into a game like Snade, he'd play 80 minutes and competitive as hell.
Yeah. Some players just have a different switch when it comes to game time.
Yeah.
What about Penrith Premiership? Yeah, the year you won that. Like, not many players can say they've won a Premiership.
Yeah.
What a
they
team.
can.
Yeah.
That
What
was
a team.
And then, it's for me, it was amazing because I was a Penrith fan.
Yeah.
So the reason I went to Penrith was because I wanted to play for the club. So to this day, like, die hard and still am. But it's one of those things is that I think I travelled from Cronulla to Penrith every day for training and appreciated every minute of it because I was playing for the club I loved.
Yeah.
But then when we first got there, I think we lost the first 4 games, and like some of the Dragons boys were like, "You've just left the best." Like, Dragons are a really good team. They're like, "You've left that to what's happening," and then suddenly something clicked with all the young fellas, and they were ruthless. Like, you had your old boys like Satsy and that and Gowie that were just like mentality wise, and we sort of just snowballed and talk about confidence within players. And I remember we'd get scored against and by the best teams, and we'd be sitting behind the try line watching the kick go over, and the boys would be like, "Who gives a crap? We're going to score next." Like, they just had this mentality of if they score, we'll score more.
Yeah.
And it snowballed all year to the grand final, which was pretty wicked. But,
You had the perfect balance, the perfect chemistry of older players and younger players that year. Obviously, yourself with Frankie Pritchard.
Yeah, Frankie was coming in 04.
04.
But we had Jolie, Trent Waterhouse, Luke Swain, Shane Rodney, myself, Rooney, Lewis,
TP,
Joe
Nellavau,
Reece Wesser, Gowie,
Gurges
Wow.
in the centres,
Marty Lang,
Marty Lang,
I think everyone played, or Luke Prittis, everyone played
Prittis.
Origin or representative footy in that whole team. Paul Fatawira.
Because Roosters were never meant to get beat.
No, never.
Never.
No, they were the best team.
I think the whole of, like, the East Coast was going for Penrith.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that was probably the one time I
It's
actually
one of the
backed
best
him.
grand finals I've ever watched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm good mates with Toddy Byrne.
Oh,
Poor Burnsy. I thought, if he didn't stumble at the start, because Sats ain't that quick, but Toddy wasn't the quickest winger either. I'm like, mate, put it on the toe or something.
something. Like, how do you let Satsy? But it's funny. We always talk about Stick. When you mention Todd Byrne to Stick, he's just like, it's the best. But yeah, it's it was a great feeling. Like winning the grand final, like tick box. It felt like, and in a way, I wish it would have come later in my career. Because I'd gone from a Dragons Premiership in reserve grade to losing one against you guys and against the Bulldogs in reserve grade to winning a Premiership. And then the next year we lost to the Bulldogs before the grand final.
In the prelim, yeah.
So I always thought, oh, God, we're always going to make grand finals. We're always going to do this. And then we missed the semis in 05 and I went to the Sharks and the rest is history. We didn't get back to a good semi-final till 09, I think, under Stick. Was it 09? 08. 08, yeah, under Stick. And we got minor premiers and, and I thought, gee, you've got to appreciate this because you don't know when you're going to get it again. But I think we got it real early. How old were you when you won?
I was 21 as well, yeah. So
wow.
we won. So I went 02, the reserve grade one, 04, the first grade one. Yeah. 05, we didn't make the semis either. We were injured. Penrith were injured.
Yeah.
Brisbane, I think the Brisbane boys were out. Like all the top teams were kind of out. No disrespect to Tigers and Cowboys.
But that's the thing. I don't know if you felt, but if I knew I was coming up with the Tigers in 05, we'd steamroll them. We'd big packs. We'd just go through them.
It was hard to watch. I was like, what am I watching? Because all the best teams, to be fair, the best teams are all out injured. But,
Says two blokes who were in those teams.
Did you come on that PM trip? The 05 one?
05,
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
We were speaking about it recently. Rico, Sutto.
I just remember going in the bus and like the bus hitting people and just going off the side and you're like, what's going on?
A trip.
And then walking onto that field and the dogs everywhere.
Yeah. We're throwing our boots in the crowd and they had to stop us throwing boots.
Well, they had to stop it with the Pac Champs because they warned the players this one round. They're like, do not throw anything to it because the younger kid gets it, then the next age group up bashes them, and then they take it, and the next age group bashes them, and it starts the riots, and they run onto the field. Yeah. And they had to rush on to get the players off, and so for the rest of the Pac Champs, the players were just walking off, trying not to make eye contact because they're just so mad for league, right? Yeah. And they never get to see you guys. They never get that first touch of players. But you guys went over early when there was not much security, and you guys probably weren't really worded up.
There were a few guns up and guys standing. I was like, what's going on? you look at the field and it's like cement. There was hardly any grass. It was I had
because they placed so much footy on it.
Yeah. Do you remember we went to the jail? Did you come? They split the two groups up.
I don't know.
So they took us to a jail. And
take him to a jail.
Right. Yeah, they took me out and locked me up.
Two groups.
And the whole thing was, it was Caramap. It was promoting condoms because obviously and we go into the jail and I'm talking to someone thinking, who are we surrounded by? And he goes, he's done triple murder, he's done a murder. I'm like, we're just sitting with the whole yard just going, get me out of here. But, mate, wild.
Remember you going past in the bus, past streets, he goes, you can go down that street, you sort of be safe. Next one, they'll kill you. Yeah. The next one, and you'd be naming streets apart. You go, you can't walk down there, they'll chop your head off straight away.
Yeah.
You're like, what? Yeah, we're doing the AIDS and condoms talk, and literally, what they say, 2% of the population have been tested, and 90% of them have AIDS. And we're standing in crowds before games, and they're all over you. I'm like, what?
There was no sanitizer,
Oh, there was nothing. Back then, no sanitizer.
Nothing.
But there's
and we've got open wounds from the concrete field that we played on.
It's just geez, everything was better. Experiences, eh?
I love the place.
Yeah,
I love it. I've been back a lot. I love it over there. Yeah.
They're so grateful. They just love it. And I remember sitting outside the compound. They were all outside.
Yes, at the gates.
Hey, I'm like, and they're like, wow, so good.
Just makes you feel like a god as well too.
And you're appreciative of, and I'm glad they're doing all this stuff now with, I suppose, government and hopefully having a team over there. But that's rugby league, isn't it? It brings people together. It's awesome.
And what about stepping into State of Origin? You said, obviously going from the Premiership, getting that call up into the Queensland side. What was that like for you?
Yeah, that was it's like, so is this a dream come true? I never realised that I could ever make Origin. Like as a kid growing up, I always looked at playing footy and those type of things, but thought, yeah, I could make NRL. But you never dreamt of, you dreamt of playing Origin, but you never thought you'd make it. And obviously, I was playing on the bench for Penrith. I had Joel Clinton and Marty Lang in front of me. And back then, and it is now too, is the focus of the bench is so important to a team.
You saw that
and
on
I'd sort of
Wednesday.
got accustomed that Lenny on the other night, how good he was for New South Wales. And Origin, and I got a call, and I was just sitting at home. I was on MySpace, tapping away. And
What was your song on MySpace?
I can't even remember now. Creepy MySpace.
Right up your
Hello,
alley.
ladies. But yeah, and then, oh, God. And I remember tapping away and the phone ringing, and it was home phone. Picked it up, and it was just like, hey, and we're just chatting away, and they go, oh, you know, Origin's coming up, and I'm like, yeah, and they're like, you're in the team. I'm like,
Wow.
really? No, you're kidding me, because I knew a few people in the Origin arena, and they're like, yeah, you're in. And I'm like, I sort of
Who
stopped.
was it that called you?
Now you have to somehow cut this off.
We can edit this.
Yeah, edit this. Name him the Godfather of rugby league. I can't even think of it now.
Ken Arthurson.
No, somebody who's got a big mustache. I can't even think now. So as soon as I started talking, I was like, I got to change the situation, because he called me, and he goes, and literally, well, I can't even think of the name, but sitting on the phone, he goes, now, I was really quiet, and he goes, hey, congratulations. And I just quiet, and I was like, this is true. This is true.
Yeah.
I'm playing Origin. I'm playing with the likes of Shane Webke, Sinner Vasiva, the people I've always looked up to. And he goes, do you want to call your dad now? And I was like, oh, shit, I've got to call my family. What have I got? And you start thinking, oh, I've got to get tickets for him. I've got to do this and that. And it's like, oh, well, let's let you get back to what you were doing. And I was like, shit, I'm not going to tell him I'm on MySpace. It's like,
I'm just watching game footage.
And it's and it was one of those moments that I remember. I was in my Penrith house, and I remember exactly where I was sitting, and like you think there's moments in life that you remember it so clearly. And I remember calling mum and dad, and literally I said to dad, get mum on the phone. And before I could get mum on the phone, I was like, Dad, I've made Origin. And he started crying, and I was like,
Wow.
oh shit, don't tell mum I told you. All right, no, and it's one of those things, but taking it for granted again, like all these things came so early in my life, like Premiership, Origin, PM's 13, that type of stuff. It was like, okay, this is meant to be. And it was taken for granted, because I thought it came a lot easier than what it did. Even though I trained my ass off to get to where I was, it just sort of, everything was falling into place. And yeah, lo and behold, after that, it was 2005, we played PMs, and 2006 I was moving to Cronulla, and literally everything was perfect in about round 7, I think it was. Yeah.
Was that when you did your knee?
Yeah, so playing Penrith, and God bless Tomo's soul. Lance Thompson was part of the Sharks team and a very close friend of mine. And all leading up to that game at Penrith, he was like stirring the media, going, Ben's going to come back and smash him. And like putting all this pressure on me. I'm like, shut up, man. You know, Tommy, you used to just be loud and boisterous. And so when it got to the game, I was like, mate, now you've put it on me, I'm going to be targeted, this, that, and the other. And I remember us kicking off and played out a set, and then he whispered in my ear, you've got to put a shot on at the start, and then it'll go all quiet. And so we kicked off from 2 players, and then I remember we're down the one end, and Joel was about to take a hit up, and I started to sprint off the line. I thought, he's the biggest guy on the team, got to put a hit on him. And as I was running, I stood in a bit of a hole, and I felt my knee go and snap, and I was like, and made the tackle, and sort of stayed. And you try to run it, you're like, I've already done one knee reco. I knew exactly. And I thought, I'm staying on the field. And the trainer came over and he said, we know your knee's gone. And literally walked in, and we'd done the Aussie camp the week before. Remember we'd done it at Coogee? They had for the test match.
Yep.
And we'd done that, and so everything was aligned. I thought, potentially I could be in the test match, all these things, and mate, in an instant, like you're just out there and you're just like, everything's gone. The doctor pulled me into the sheds. He went, your AC's totally gone. You just think, okay, there's a whole year. So Origin, potential test match footy, Sharks, we'd won pretty much every game. We're on top of the table. Thought, and it's all gone.
This was going to be the major year. And was it harder to take, considering it was technically like a pothole in the field as opposed to actually happening in a physical encounter?
Yeah. And it's I still remember the whole time I felt my knee go, and it's just like the ground was perfect, but I had to pick the one hole in the bloody field that, and you start questioning yourself.
Yeah.
You're like, what was it? Why am I like this? But it was one of those things that I suppose I learned to get over it. There are a few positives that come out of it, but it was a tough break to really handle because the Sharks went down pretty rapidly after that. I think there were about 3 or 4 other people who got injured, and we went down, and Stuart Raper got sacked as the coach, and there were a number of things that happened, and it sort of all spiraled out of control for that year.
You talk about there being a couple of positives that came out of it that year. What were they for you? Like if you're a player sitting at home and similar things sort of happen to you as well too, especially if you're a young bloke, that it's the end of the world especially when you're sitting here saying you've lost Australia, you've lost Queensland, you've lost, potentially a premiership.
Yeah.
How did you help yourself, like toolkit wise, get through that year?
It wasn't just me, it was my mates. Like this, I talked to like Tomo, like every day he'd call me, every day he'd get around you. So the best thing about footy is you got teammates. So they always welcome you back. You train together and you learn to build a few things, but trying to stay positive and focus on other things as well was really helped me. But about 6 weeks into my knee injury, I was getting pain medication from my pharmacist, who is now my wife. So I went in, I sort of noticed her, and this is one of the big positives. And
She's a glamour.
She's a glamour. Yeah. She's so hot. But
good name too.
Yeah. No, it's not. No, sometimes I forget. I got to look at my no. No. So but it was one of those things. Like I'd met her, and like as a pharmacist, and I went to a thing. Tomo, like I was stuck in my home, and Tomo goes, "Come out. I'm launching a new restaurant. Come out. You don't have to drink. You can drive. That's good." When I got there, she was there, and it was like all these things started aligning. So my mind was really off footy for a bit. Chased her for about 6 months. But that's one of the positives. So understanding she knew nothing about footy.
Yep.
So I took my focus away from, okay, I know the boys are playing and I'm in rehab, but when I left the footy ground, and it's something I still can't do now, is that I didn't think about football. I don't know about you, but I lived and breathed it. When I was at training, and then I'd go home and I'm thinking, what have I got to do? Where have I got to be? And my mind would never stop. And I think in that year, it taught me to refocus and go, okay, what else is there in life? So it really helped me through the injury.
What were you like, Ren, during those periods? Did you have time away from footy or?
I had 2 years.
Well, sorry, that was a stupid loaded question. As in terms of how did you keep your brain off?
Mine was surfing.
Yeah.
I was a footy head early in my career. Like I'd get the Big League magazine and I'd look at who I'm playing against. I'd watch every game.
Yeah.
And then when I had a lot of success in the game early, like yourself, grand finals, Australia, the rest of it, I thought it just came too easy after that.
Yeah.
And then that's when I started to sort of neglect the hard work, the detail that I needed to be a good player. So I struggled to find the balance between being a professional and my social life. Yeah. Early on in my career, I loved it.
Yeah.
The back end, not so much.
But it was condoned too, that social life. And going out and the drink, footy, go and play, and that's where are we going? We're all out in the drink. Like
I'd pack my jeans before my boots.
Especially going to the Cowboys.
Yeah.
Remember the rule? But it was, you go, okay, boys, we've got to win, or we're not allowed out tonight.
Yeah.
And it'd be like, to be checking it off on the calendar. Here we go.
Like that, just before the 2-minute talk, we'd be in a huddle going, boys, let's get this win because we can have a beer tonight. And it'd motivate you. Like, let's get out there and win.
We had Cowboys were beating, when I was at Penrith, Cowboys were beating us, and we were standing behind the try line. And Sassy came in the huddle. I hope he's watching this. And he goes, if we don't score, we're not going out. And the boys, you just see their eyes roll, and it's like, we've got to win. We've got to win. Yeah. I remember Joe Nullivale scored, and boys were hugging and kissing each other. It was just being the Cowboys. It was like we won the grand final. We're going
about to have the night of your life.
It was the best. The drink cards had come out, and
it's
just like, oh, God, that was... See,
times have changed now, haven't they? Like the kids don't do it the way we used to do it, but it was a level of bonding. I think sometimes you need a beer to bond. It's the fact, but now, with how hard the game is, the science in the game.
But it's not only that; it's their social life. They're all on social media.
They're just doing TikTok dances now.
Yeah, but we'd go out. You go out meet the girl of your dreams or whatever,
Yeah.
you'd have to go out, you'd buy a beer, you'd take her to dinner.
Yeah.
Now it's swipe left or right or whatever it is.
That's so true.
They don't need to socialise anymore. You can
Yeah.
sit in your house and be a recluse, which is
Yeah.
probably one of the things about if you're injured and you haven't been out and you don't know how to talk to people and do all these type of things, is you're in a spiral. And that's where I see the issues with young kids now.
Well, that's how we bonded, was over beers.
Yeah. Too many.
Yeah.
A few broken necks.
Yeah. We'll get to that very shortly. Let's start with, with your broken neck. That was like a massive, massive hit for you. Like, you went down, you were out cold for a significant amount of time. When did it click for you that that's the injury you'd done when you're on the field?
Yeah, it's strange because when it happened, I heard the snap and my arms went weak and I couldn't move them. I was sort of up around like they were just frozen. And I remember, and you're probably well aware that Sticky would always, Sticky's one of the hardest, greatest, angriest coaches I've ever had.
Yeah.
Like, there's things that I pull out now, and I used to hate bits and pieces of when he coached me, but then I realised it made me better for who I was. But he used to say, no matter what, you're injured, get up in the defensive line and don't show that you're weak, because if you show that you're weak, they're coming straight at you.
Yeah.
And we're on our try line and my arms froze. And I thought, I've got to stand up. I could move my legs. And I sort of stood up and leaned against the pole. And because I was standing there looking like I was a defender, they went away from me. And Trent Elkin came up to me and he goes, what's the matter? You leaned against the pole. And so I felt my neck snap. And he's like, what? And I said, I can't move my arms. And he instantly laid me down on the ground and goes, we're not moving you. Like, if you can't move your arms, lay down on the ground. And they put us on the Medicab, put me into the room, and because I could move my feet, no one really panicked about anything.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, okay, you've got movement, lower body. Normally it's the lower body that goes first, not your upper body. And we're lying there and you could hear the game and you could hear everything going along. And I never really had a worry. Like, I was like, this is okay. And then the boys, you hear the siren go, we'd beat Penrith. It's funny that all my injuries came when I was playing Penrith. But it wasn't meant to be. I never wanted to leave the club.
Yeah.
So.
You were getting punished.
Yeah,
for
getting
leaving.
punished. But yeah. And I remember the boys walking in, they're all like, you're okay. They remember the medical room was right next to where you walked in.
Yep.
And I remember one of the boys coming in and tapping me on the shoulder and going, you're okay. Like that, like tapping me. And my legs went instantly. And one of the doc just looked at me and he's like, oh, fine. And they said, close the door. And they got the ambulance and straight to St. George Hospital. And we're in there and they did all the tests, all the scans. And because our necks are so thick, they couldn't see the scan, but they said there's swelling, there's too much to see in there. And they said, but everything, you can still feel pinpricks and all that. And they said everything should be fine. They left me there overnight, but I couldn't move. So I had the neck brace on and everything. And I remember, because I couldn't move my hands, I couldn't press the buzzer to call the nurse or anything like that. So I'm just laying there. Suddenly, I'm allergic to painkillers, so I vomit heaps.
Wow.
And so I started vomiting, and I'm laying there and choking on it, spitting it out. And the nurse took like 15 minutes till she came back, so I'm spitting it and just going out. And she came in, she's like, oh, you press the button. I'm like, how can I press a button?
I've got a broken neck. Oh, my God.
And then, so the next morning, so I went through the whole night, no sleep. Next morning, they said, okay, we'll take you over to St. George Private, get a better scan. Took me over, and by this stage, it was sort of like things were starting to feel a bit better. So, like, I could feel movement in my body, and came back from the scan. And they put me, instead of laying me flat, they put me up just a little bit so I could talk to people. And Dave Riccio came in, and he's like talking away, and my wife's there, and there's this cleaner. We're talking, and I'm sort of still jovial, and the cleaner's going around the bed. And at the same time, the doctor walks in. The doctor goes, we can't move Ben. The scans come back, he's got a broken neck. At the same time, the cleaner hit the bed, and the bed went flat. I started screaming. Oh, it was the worst pain. It's the worst pain I've ever had. They gave me a green whistle to put all the pain out. I couldn't. I was still done. And so we went straight to St. Vincent's, and it was an emergency procedure. So the disc had exploded into the spinal cord and it started to hemorrhage, which is normally paraplegia. So
wow. So you get a tap on the shoulder from your teammate.
Yeah,
then you nearly choke on your vomit, and then the cleaner knocks the bed.
Yeah, and I'm like,
I've got no words. I'm still like,
and that's what I mean. And we'll probably talk a little bit later about Richard Parkinson, a surgeon that worked on my neck. And I remember him getting my wife, pulling her away for a second and telling her the outcomes of what could happen. Possibly if I wake up, I won't be able to move again. And she came over and spoke to me about it. And, mate, we'd just been recently married, and to have that pressure of putting that onto someone to say, hey, you could have a husband that can never move, going from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows, is probably the worst thing that I've ever experienced. And then they put me out.
And that was it. So did you have any sort of say in terms of that operation, or was it this or nothing?
This or nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's one thing I give Richard Parkinson for. I put my life in his hands in regards to that. Look, I ended up having 3 operations over 2 years.
Yeah.
But trusted him completely in what he was doing, and now I live a relatively normal life because of him.
Because it's a scary situation, right? Like, you guys would have both had operations on ankles, knees, or what have you, and you sort of don't really think about it. But as soon as they talk about anything spinal, your brain just goes.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, what if? Like, it's very close to something that can completely change my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
To go through that, it must have been like a lot of headspace for 2 years of non-stop operations. The headspace during that period must have just been hard on both you and your wife as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember my last words to her was she told me that potentially I wouldn't be walking when I came out. And I said to her, because I couldn't move, I said, if that's the case, when I come out and I can't move, that pillow goes straight in my face. And I remember her, because I don't want to be a burden to anyone in my life. Yeah. And she's like, you can't say that. And literally they went poof and put me out. I was like, fuck.
Imagine like that. That's the last words you hear from your partner as well too. Yeah. Like that's.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's weird, and I'm sort of here to tell the story about it. But it's those things that if you don't have the right support systems around you, I can see how hard it would be. Like a deal with like Nathan Stapleton, next teammate of ours, and what he's going through, but he's got great support systems around him. So they're the scary things. Here we go through so many ups and downs in footy, but if you don't have the right support system around you, then it's a hard life.
Yeah, and we'll touch on you being a support system for me a little bit later on as well too. But what were the things that sort of helped you get back? Because, like, I mean, you're getting told you might not walk again. Yeah. You potentially got a fair few surgeries lined up in front of you. To get through those 2 years and run out and play that game of footy.
Yeah, it's funny. Every time people talk about my neck, my fingers go tingly, and I end up playing with my hands a lot. I'm like, oh, this is crazy. But it's funny, support system. So my wife said no matter what, she'll support me with everything that we go through. Richard Parkinson always gave me uplift confidence in that. But I'd never thought about playing football again.
Yeah.
Like I always wanted to, but I thought that's an impossibility. And after about 8 weeks, I started to walk again, and just slow walks along the Esplanade in Cronulla. So life was...
Yeah, I was like, couldn't think of worse places.
Yeah. Shirt off. No, couldn't get my shirt off. It's too hard. But it was funny. It came to Origin, and I know we talk about Origin and the feeling. John Lang, he gave me pretty much my life in regards to playing at Penrith and support systems in Queensland. And Queensland great for he was, and it was coming up to Origin, and I literally had no one to watch Origin with, and I got a phone call from Langy, and Langy said, "Hey, do you want to come around and watch Origin with me?" And he was just around the corner. I thought that would be fantastic. I went around, I was sitting there and was literally chatting away, and I was so excited about the footy, and he goes, "Do you still think you can play?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I reckon I could play. I just got to get a bit stronger, fitter, and I reckon I can play." And he literally leaned over, put his hand out and went, "You got a contract at South if you think you can come back." And I was like, "What?" And he goes, "Yep, I'll man on my word. Here you go. We'll help you through your rehab. I think that you can come back." And literally, the contract was a handshake.
Wow.
And it was just like, he's given me something to strive for. I don't know whether it's him just to keep me upbeat, but from that point onwards, it was like clean eating. I wasn't drinking anyway, but just exercising and all that. And then got to get to South, who have one of the best facilities in rehab and all that, Eddie Farrer, and and sort of they took it through, but they gave me the confidence to be there. So 2 years, it was a long 2 years.
And what was it like? What was going through your head? Because that was the game that was at Redfern, wasn't it?
Yeah,
was it Return to Redfern?
Yeah.
And that was your first game. So the fanfare that everyone's back there at Redfern.
Yeah.
But having to go through the headspace to go, all right, first hit. Like, you're one of those blokes who literally, you've said all episode, first hit up bloke. Yeah. I'm the first hit up bloke.
So it's funny.
Did that change?
Nah. So it was quite, it's one of these things. So Return to Redfern is like, they were talking about, it was packed crowd. It was going to be a 40-degree day. Laney pulled me into the office earlier in the week. He goes, "Listen, I'm going to make you captain." I'm like, shut up. Like, it's my first game back. I'm going to last 5 minutes. Don't put me as captain. And he goes, it's the only thing that's going to get your mindset right is you need to lead these younger fellas through and da-da-da. And Gordy Tallis was one of our coaches. So he was coaching at South. And it was quite funny. Like, from the first day, the boys used to rib me every day. Oh, he's bashed you. You're stalk and all this. And he literally pulled me aside. And Gordy's had a neck injury and all those type of things. And I was nervous. I was nervous as hell first game coming up. And I said to him, how'd you get over it? What do you think I should be doing? And he goes, you know what? If I could tell you one thing, and it's probably the best advice he's ever given me. He's given me 2 pieces of advice that I'll always live with. But he said, you're the captain. He said, you're going to go to the coin toss. Just go to the other captain and go, as they flick it, go, don't give a fuck. Just get the ball. You guys kick it off to us and kick it to my direction because I want to take the first run.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, then what do I do? And he goes, you pick the biggest fella in their team and you run as hard as you can at him and don't protect yourself. Just run. And remember Ryan Verlinden?
Yeah, big Rhino. Yeah.
He was massive. Could bench like 250 kilo unit. And so we ran out, went to do the coin toss, and literally saying, I just said, no, just kick the ball off to me, can you? And they're like, okay, no, coin toss. Done. They're kicking off to me. And it happened. I ran straight at Ryan Verlinden, and he flogged me. Like, you hear the crowd, oh, like in the video, and you're like, oh, and it hurt. And it was just like, and that's history. I got up and I was able to play. And Gordy said that. He said, it'll be one thing you never play again. Or you keep playing. And I'm like, it's a good way of getting over that mindset of like, I don't want to be scared. I don't want to be sitting there for 5 minutes thinking, oh, I'll pass the ball. He said, you've got to get that mentality. And I was able to play every game that year after that. So it was pretty sick.
Yeah, because I remember we met through a mutual mate of ours, Kaz, and I was going to come down. I think I was working for Fox at the time, and I was meant to come and watch you play that game, but I couldn't get down because of Titans work. Yeah. But I watched it at home, and it was just, from being a mate, so inspiring to see, to get over such a huge hurdle, and then to get out there and, hit the ball up and run it straight. There was so much of me sitting there going, oh, you don't do that. I can't imagine how Renee would have been, your wife, up in the stands, watching like this.
And then my parents were there, everyone was there, but it was like 41.6 degrees.
Yeah,
it was around now, and I was like
0.6.
I remember it. I was like, oh,
the details.
And I remember going to the ref. We scored the first try, and I'm like, is it half time yet? And he goes, mate, it's been 5 minutes. I'm like, this is going to hurt me. So but it was one of those experiences I always remember. And the people I got to thank is Langy and South Sydney. Like they went out, and Russell has let me know that. I remember because I signed a 1-year deal, and then at the end of that first year of training, I trained with him for a year and got knocked back because of my neck. And he pulled me aside as we're going out to a game, and he goes, "Oh, I want you to come on my boat." He had that boat he had at the front of his house. I'm like, okay. And we got on there, and he goes, "You owe the club." I'm like, yeah, I do. so I was like, I'm not going to say anything else but this. And he goes, well, you got to sign a base wage because I was allowed to play again. And he goes, minimum contract. I was like, yeah, Russell, sweet, fine. And he's like, and sitting in awe of this guy, like the gladiator. And he put on the voice, and then I was like, oh shit, okay, I'm going to sign. But the club was phenomenal. Like, you talk about people getting lowlights. If I keep talking about support systems, but footy has so many different areas of support. I know that people struggle, but I think they're blindsided by not seeing who's there. Like, they've got to have an open mindset to realise that. But there's always support all around you, which is pretty cool.
Did you ever catch Reni's story about his first meeting with Russell Crowe? He spoke in third person.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I spoke about myself in the third person.
Oh, you put on. Yeah, you talking about me. I saw it.
I'm glad you brought it up.
No, you're welcome.
Oh, God.
If you haven't seen that one, is the episode that we have with John Sutton. It's on our podcast on Spotify and YouTube, so make sure you check it out. But it was one of Reni's best. But was that your only encounter with Russell where he said you owned the club, or was there any sort of...
I remember when we were up at Coffs Harbour, at his place as well, but... at the hotel, and we had to visualise grand finals and how we wanted to play and draw pictures, and I'm like, what's going on?
He did this to me.
Stick figures?
I'm like, oh.
Finger paintings.
I'm trying to sit here going, I want to believe in this, but I'm not, I can't, how do I do it? But yeah, I just love the passion that he had for the club. Like, he always wanted to support, and I remember we played Titans up at Coffs Harbour. And Michael Irvin, he brought over from Dallas Cowboys wide receiver, Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he brought him over and he gave his speech, speech of all speeches on the bus. He walked on and he's like, right, and he's inspirational. We're like, fuck, we're going to flog Titans. We got beat 40-0. Taggers just ran through us. He was just like, he had his prime, and we're like, what's going on after this inspirational speech? And then we went back to Russell's house, and Michael was sitting there around the table, and mate, it was the funniest thing ever. He goes, fuck, what was it? Like, what was more? And we're like, we were so pumped. I think we're over, just built everything out of our systems. But mate, you see Russell, he was just like, nah.
He's like, I paid all this money for this bloke to come over, give the best speech of his life.
40-0.
You blame him because the speech was too good. You got us too pumped. It's your fault.
I was so excited because I'm a Cowboys fan. So when he walked on the bus, I was just a big kid. I was like, this is the best. And then drill into him at, like, you've been to Russell's house up there, that Nana Glen or whatever.
Down the Finger Wharf.
Yeah. Oh, no, the wharf,
the
farm.
The farm or whatever.
No, not after he got kicked out of the car. Reni does what Reni wants.
Thanks for bringing it up.
Again.
But he made me visualise too. Yeah. Like, he was like, close your eyes. Man. Watch the John Sutton episode.
It started off sounding quite creepy, like it could have gone anywhere. And then, ended with Ren just wanted her running out of the car, the stop, drop and roll out.
That's so good.
Because was it that year that you must have come up? It wasn't end of season because you were with your mates that weren't footy players, the two twins, and you came up. And another one of my girlfriends was a good mate of yours, Jade.
Yeah.
And we went to Melbourne's back in the day when it used to go
Good
on.
old Melbourne's.
And you guys were playing this game where if you didn't have this little, it was like almost like a mini gummy bear thing. Yeah. And if you didn't have it, you had to scull your drink. And we'd only just caught up with them. And obviously I didn't have one of the gummy bears because I wasn't on the boys' trip. And so all the boys pulled theirs out of the pocket. And he's little, I shouldn't say little, mate.
They're not little.
Yeah, he's not little, but he was smaller than me. And so I just grabbed him by the hips and lifted him
up. Identical twins. And then he just picked him up in the middle of the crowd and he's like, what's going on?
I didn't want to scull a drink. I didn't want to miss out.
I've seen you scull a drink out of your
and then go on the worm across the floor and everything else.
Yeah, okay, yeah. But I just didn't want to scull that drink. And he was there. The situation was there. But
so good.
The elbow sculls came out. But we were leaving Melbourne's and I can't even remember where we were walking to. And as we were leaving, these guys are probably up to shooters. Yeah, actually, maybe. And as we were walking up, these blokes just started heckling.
That was after a Macca's fight.
Oh, yeah.
Food fight.
Yeah, that's right.
Someone heckled me at Macca's, so I threw a massive burger across the room at them. Like that, and then it started. And Gus was like, everyone's got to get out. And we're like, get out.
Renee, I was like, right, move. So we're walking across the street. The boys were kind of in front, and I was sort of picking up the loose ends and getting them out. And once we'd sort of made some traction, like Brossy was further up than me. So I've just sort of run up and went to sort of jump on his back. He thought I was the bloke. So he's like flicked me and body slammed me into the ground.
Put my elbow into her throat, like boom. I was like, oh God. Oh no. Mate, hit her hard, like flipped. I was like, wow, this guy's dead. Oh no, it's Garth. I'm in trouble here.
So I was sort of like, got a little bit of concussion from it, but we sort of laughed about it and went home. And I think it was like 2 days later, I was getting the worst migraines, like horrific day after day migraines. I was like, I probably should go to the doctor because I reckon there's concussion there. And anyway, so I'm talking to the doctor. I'm like, I think I had a concussion. I said, but obviously getting migraines, it's happened a couple of days now. Like, I think I might just need prescription or whatever. She's like, I think I might do an x-ray on you if you said you were dropped on your head. And I was like, okay, cool. Do it. She does the x-ray. She comes back in. She's white as a ghost. And she's like, lay down on this bed. Don't move. Chucks a neck brace on me. And I'm like, what's going on? She's like, please don't move. Straps my arms down. And then she's like, actually, no, where the fracture is. And I was like, fracture? She's like, yeah, it looks like you've broken your neck. We've called an ambulance. They're taking you to the hospital. And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm fine. She's like, how did you get here? I was like, I drove here. And she goes, you could have been a paraplegic. You were this close. I was like, I went over several speed bumps and that's still like, didn't slow down. And I'm like, yeah, cool. And so she's doing this to me and she like left me in the room and I've just picked my phone up and all I could manage was to do this. And it was a selfie of neck brace and my head and sent it to him and just went, fuck you.
Good shot.
I was like, Oh, shit.
Oh,
And he's
wow.
like, what's going on? I was like, I don't think anything's wrong, but they've told me my neck's broken, which means you did it. Captain Mister, I broke my neck and came back and played football.
See, look at you now.
No, look at me now. But it was like he's sitting there and he's like all of a sudden panicking. They've rushed me to hospital and I get there and they've done like a bone scan. And the chick comes out and she takes the neck brace off and she goes, "You're fine." I'm like, it wasn't my choice to come here. I go, why did they think it was a break? She goes, "Oh, it's just your neck. You're hypermobile, so it's just sitting differently." She's like, "Get out." I'm like, "Okay, get rushed into an ambulance. My car's back at the GP. Like, can you give me a lift back?" And I forgot to call him back as well too.
I'm panicking. I'm like, I've done something. What have I done?
Yeah.
She started it.
Yeah.
I'm going to
Always
get in
my
so much
fault.
trouble. Stop picking up midgets. No. Hey, Drew.
Yeah, it was Drew's fault.
Yeah.
You were going to be down to
that's
it.
Yeah.
But you've been such like a massive supporter in my life, and it came down to quite a crucial moment with you. But that kind of transpired by another injury that you had on the Footy show with the old broken arm wrestle with Dell.
Yeah.
You've had some decent.
Yeah. I'm just like, God, that was another one. Yeah. And there we go. Every time I hear about an injury, my hands go.
Yeah.
It's like when you see someone do the same injury you've done, you feel it.
Yeah.
Don't you reckon?
I think everyone felt that when they were watching.
Yeah.
Oh.
Hey, it's that was freaky. So never lost an arm wrestle in my life ever. And Wendell was the same. He goes, "I've never lost one." Like, I remember doing Josh Perry arm wrestling him. I'm like, "Mate, I've never lost." Like, my arm just boom and beat him. He's like, "I hate you," and walked off, kind of thing. But then when it came up to Wendell, and we're like, "This can only be like someone's got to really." And we're laughing. "Oh, someone will break an arm. It never happens."
So you were laughing about that before it happened?
Yeah, because no one had ever heard of someone breaking their arm in arm wrestle, or well, I hadn't. And no, we hadn't really.
Didn't have the
I wish I
internet,
would've Googled
obviously.
it. Yeah, we hadn't done that. But we went out for our first one, and I remember Wendell went for it. And as I started to do it, my arm started to hurt, and I was like, "Oh, let him win."
Let him win.
Yeah, I'll put it down. He goes, "You let me win." And he started getting aggressive.
Yeah.
Like
He's very humble and quiet.
Yeah, I'll let you win, mate. And we had like 15 minutes before our next one. I'm like, "Yeah, I will let you win, buddy. It's okay." And I thought this whole time, how am I going to beat him? I thought, I've got to catch him. So when they go, boom, just to go and get him. So I knew as long as I was half over, I'd beat him.
Yeah.
And when we came back for the second one, they put their hands together, and everything wasn't whatever we had, the makeshift arm wrestling, just was crap. But as we put our hands up, they said, "Oh, we're going to strap you together." I'm like, "Fucking what?" So they started strapping us together. I'm like, this has not happened before. I'm like, I've really got to beat him straight away because he'll slip somehow and pull out. And I went, okay, so they're ready, set, and 1, 3, 2. And on that, I looked away and threw my arm. One thing you're not supposed to do is look away from your hand, but I didn't know. So it changes to talking your shoulder.
I didn't know
Have
the
you ever
techie of
seen
an
Over the
arm
Top with Sylvester Stallone?
Yeah,
You
That's
knew
the way.
you knew not to look away.
But it's and I just sort of went like that. I went, my head went that way, and my arm went that way, and
Well, your arm went that way.
yeah, like everywhere. So I remember looking back and the whole arm dropping, like it was just dropped. And Wendell was white, like
Yeah,
the blood went out of his
expression.
face. He was a different color, and I was like. And he couldn't get his hand out because we're strapped together. He's sitting there going, "Oh," like that. And I'm like, "Ah!" And he's just sitting there going, "Oh," like panicking. And
He's like, I don't want to touch it.
yeah. And it's
The sound of that was insane.
insane, yeah. But it was funny because I was working for Men League at the time, yeah. And I'd taken a
I was laughing so much.
Yeah.
shit, yeah. Actually, no, but I took a family there for Men of League, and one of the mum that was part of the family that we took there was a paramedic nurse, and so she stabilised me and did everything because there was no one ever thought that had happened at the Footy show, and so we're out the back and she'd stabilised me, but what she'd done is she got a big security guard, a big fat security guard, and she said, "This is the softest thing," and put my arm onto his belly and just lay there. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, and I had this thought. I thought, I've got to call my wife now
Oh, because she would have
because
seen
she
it
probably
live.
thinks it's a joke. Because Footy
Yeah,
show's a joke.
yeah.
And I picked up the phone and I went, I had it on loudspeaker and I was like, and she goes, "Tell me it was a fucking joke." And I'm like, "Oh," and fat security guard started laughing and giggling. I'm like, ah! And then I gave it to someone. I said, can you talk to him? I'm like sitting there and he's giggling away. I'm like, oh! And it just, there was no pain, like no pain meds there. It was nothing there.
Yeah.
So we had to wait for the ambulance, and the paramedic actually, she called in that I was having a heart attack, and so they came quicker.
So they came faster.
Yeah. And so they came in, and 5 vials of morphine later. But this is the best part. It's not the best part. It was the most painful part. The most pain I've ever felt in my life is that when they got into the ambulance, they put my arm back up like that to hold, and they said, that's secure, we'll tape you in. And we got to the hospital, and we're sitting there, and the nurse is looking at me like, and I'm like, what now? She goes, I've got to take you for an x-ray. And I'm like, okay.
Which means you've got to...
Yeah. So she wheels me out, leaves my wife there, walks me through one door, another door. And I'm like, we're going past all these x-ray units. And she goes, you need to be down the end. I'm like, oh,
so
no.
Don't hear you
we
scream.
got there, yeah. And she pulled my arm out like that to do it. And my wife heard me from like 5 corridors down like the scream. It's the worst I've ever felt. So my whole arm was shattered.
So you're not joking. They literally took you as far away as possible so no one could hear you.
Because they'd had so many people in there. They said, you're going to scream. Like the 5 vials of morphine didn't work. Like it wasn't enough to stop. Yeah, so it's quite funny.
Lol.
Yeah. And then you get Big Wendell coming in the next day with a Kit Kat going, look, your arm. I'm like, yeah, thanks, mate. Yeah, this is awesome. But
he would have just been using humour to get himself through the situation too, though.
So, but he was fantastic. The whole time he'd call a couple of times a week to see how I was, and called my wife to see how she was. So he was really good with it all in regards to it, so support-wise.
Because I remember we were in Origin camp, and my old man must have watched the show, and I hadn't watched it that night. And he's like, have you spoken to Ben? Have you spoken to Ben? I was like, no, what's going on? He goes, mate, you've got to check the internet. He goes, did you not watch the Footy show last night? I was like, no. And he goes, he snapped his arm wrestling. I was like, Dad, I've got to get off the phone. I think I messaged you straight away. What have you done, dickhead?
Oh, yeah. It's those things that everyone thought it was a joke.
Yeah.
So it looked like it. Fatty Vaughn said we've got to go to a break. All these things you're like, yeah, this looks like it's a hoax.
Yeah.
But but that was pretty bad.
And that, like, adding on top layer of all these injuries and all these times off, that you were sort of battling a fair bit with your headspace during that time too, weren't you?
Yeah. I really started to battle with my headspace from the neck.
Yeah.
I battled until I could really get back and start doing a number of things. And then I obviously had kids, and at the end of my career, I started to get the pains down my arms again. And I remember the game clearly. We played Canberra. We were in the pink jerseys, and I made a tackle and my whole left side went numb, and I was like, I'm finishing, I'm retiring today. So it's funny, Dave Riccio took a photo from the grandstand after the game. I had my daughter out on the middle of the field, and I was sitting there, and he took the exact moment I told her that I was going to retire. And
wow.
It was like, right then I said, I want to stop now to Flano. I said, I want to retire today. And he goes, no, play the season out. You'll be okay. It's just I was like, it's just my neck.
Yeah.
But knowing that, like, they always say that there's times like Gordy used to say to me, I always used to say to him, when do you know you want to retire? And he said, when you go into a game and you look out on the bus and you look out and there's someone at the pub and you want to be there and not.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I started to feel that. And then when this happened, that moment I knew this isn't for me. So
Gordy also mentioned, he goes, when you go out in the footy field, he goes, and I started smelling the pies instead of the DP. And then also just wanting his beer and a pie.
Whip his breath. Something like that. Dealing with all those type of emotions, like the roller coaster. My background is mental health, so went to university and did health science, those type of things. So understanding the triggers and what was coming, and headspace, no matter how prepared you are, it can get you straight away.
Yeah.
So. I just made sure I had the right supports around me and those type of things. The arm was difficult because, and you'd be the same, leaving footy, you realise who your real mates are.
Yeah.
And that type of thing. And I'd left footy, gone into the medal league, still in the light, people saw me, that type of thing. But then I realised that my true friends are the ones that were the caring, the support there, and the others were just like, oh, he's not in the limelight anymore, let's beat it. So that's what I more struggled with, that the friends I thought were friends weren't friends.
Yeah.
So and so I just had to reevaluate life after that.
And it was weird because you and I were sort of going through like I was having really bad issues with my mental health, and I was sort of coming through, like I was in the football system because I was working in rugby league. And so I sort of had the male's mentality of I wasn't allowed to speak out about it either and found it really hard. So I didn't take on my own responsibility of saying I needed help or sort of trying to speak about it and deal with it, and sort of went down a route where I just made a decision like I'm going to take my life because I don't see any other option or any other sort of way out. And you're kind of in a moment of insanity because you're not thinking clearly. You're not thinking about repercussions or sort of anything sort of else that comes between it. And it got to a stage where I was just like, nah, done, decision made. And we just happened to be chatting. I think it was your birthday. Was it? Yeah, it was June. It's almost, around this time. And I was meant to come down and have drinks with him for his birthday and obviously see him because he's broken his arm. And I had not left my room. I'd just come back from Origin camp. I had not left my room for 2 days and I physically couldn't. Like I was just so paralysed. And I remember just writing to him, just going, oh, really sorry, mate. Like I've got a migraine or something like that. And just went like, I can't catch up. But Ben just knew something was wrong and he's just like, are you okay? Like instead of, like I should have been worried about his headspace.
So, because my arm was in a sling and I remember clearly sitting on the couch, watching the footy, text message, told him with that. And she said that, she said, oh, sorry, I can't come down, whatever. Last words were, I love you. I'm like, you've never said that to me before. I'm like, you've never said like, as a mate, you go, I love you, mate, that stuff.
Yeah.
But it was at the end, it was the last part of the message. I'm like, that is really, really weird. And I was sitting there and I said to Renee, my wife, I was like, something's going on here. I probably need your help. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, so Ben obviously couldn't drive and he ended up texting mates of mine. And then the next thing I remember is my door getting kicked in by a mate and an ambulance out the front and being at a hospital. And I have so much of my, so many memories and so much of my life to thank, all because a mate knew to read into a message. And I was filthy at you. And it's weird, when you it's such a weird thing to say that you're so angry that in your head at the time it's a failure, and you're embarrassed and you go through all this sort of stuff. And the worst part about it was that it has sort of happened and it was in between Origin camps and, they put you through the rehab system and kick you back out and go, you've got to go back into normality. That's the best way to sort of help do it. I had to go back into normality and then pretend that everything was fine because I had to go straight into camp. Anyway, they got wind of it because, mum and dad had to have conversations with work. So they banned me from camp. They said, no, if work finds out or footballers find out, you're going to be a distraction. So the HR, which I won't mention his name, but he went, you're going to be a distraction. You can't come back to work. You're not going back into camp. If you come back, you can come into the office. And I was like, well, people are going to ask more questions. They're going to ask, why aren't you in camp? Did you do something wrong? And he goes, no, I'm getting the Black Dog Institute to come into work and talk now because of this has happened. But no one knows that you've done anything. I'm like, well, can that be an opportunity for me to walk into work and have those conversations and say, hey, I'm probably someone that you wouldn't think has mental health, but I do, and I've been struggling. This is my story. If you need to ask anything, and I'm obviously going to have Black Dog Institute there to help bridge that gap and support me and support the staff. Oh no, you're not allowed to come. You're not allowed to come to that session.
Wow.
No one's allowed to know. So they ended up telling me to go on holidays, go and get some sun and do some yoga. And while I was away, I'd written, you had to write while you're in the hospital, like a journal. And I'd written what had happened. And when I got out, I typed it up and I was using that as a way to my close mates who weren't part of the 5 that came into the hospital that time to tell them what had happened and explain my headspace and that I was getting help and this, that and the other. And one of the blokes that I'd sent it to was a mate that I've known since I was 13 was Anthony Watmo, Chock. Chock thought it was a public blog, so he tweeted it. And I was on my way into work the next day. The tweet had gotten out. One of the journos had gotten hold of it. It was a back page of the Daily Telegraph. When's Renee's next fight? She's fighting every day. Renee Gartner tried to take her life on such and such. And I walked into work with that all over the internet and that on the back page of the Daily Telegraph. And obviously because I'd mentioned Ben being the one that saved. So then they went to Ben to get interviews and my whole most embarrassing, horrible moment was now public fanfare. But it means that these conversations now happen.
That's what I was going to say. The stigma around it and how you're treated, but people now talking about all this type of stuff is like, and it's later on. I've found a young boy. I train every morning at 4:00 in the morning, and I used to run this lap, and I found a young boy hanging. It was only a few years ago, but
I remember.
Yeah,
I remember that too.
Yeah, I remember.
And it was just like, mate, and it not only if he was able to speak out to his family or whoever, or could have saved a life, but then everyone else that witnessed what happened, like I still remember the song that was playing on my iPod. So every time I hear that song now, and when I train in that area, I think about it and it gives me shivers. But the ladies that were in the area that saw it, so I had to be there and wait because I couldn't get him down till, and so people walking, and you think all these things like it's just not the one person now.
Yeah.
And that's why it should be spoken about.
Yeah.
And the things that when you messaged me and I clicked to that time, it's my wife said it's the first time she's ever seen me cry about something apart from football. So like the things that happened in footy, I was pretty upset, but I was and she goes something serious, and she knew it was then. And those things affect people so much, but it's like you said, it's out there. It's getting people to speak about it, because you're right. Like, I shouldn't say clubs, but companies used to shy away from talking about that topic, and you were seen as weak. Like, I still feel it inside, and you talk about it and you go, at my work now, we have mental health days, and we just call it mental health day.
Yeah.
You want to go away and go surfing or whatever, just go. We don't need to ask questions. Just go. And it's sort of changed that stigma, but you still feel weak. If I say those days where I want to kill people in the office or whatever it may be, but I'm too weak to say, hey, I need a day off. Like our mindsets, and it's changing all that. It's so hard.
Because I think I'm probably better, and I think Ren talked. You've spoken about your sort of situation as well too, and you get better at it, but you still have a bit of stigma in it. Because I talk to my really close friends, and I'll be like, oh, I'm having a bad day. Or I speak to my partner, I'm like, having a bad day today. I just need a recharge day, and recharge days are really important to me. I never used to take them, and you soon realise that if you don't say where you're at, it's not up to everyone else to play the guessing game. Yes, to be supportive. Yes, to have those conversations with you. But if you have this mask on it, and no one else is going to know about it until you realise that it's your responsibility just as much as everyone else's to have those really healthy chats. And it's totally fine to say you're not okay, or you want a day off, or something like that. And I think it's getting more positive in having that and having those toolkits. And it's totally fine to go to your GP and get a mental health plan and get you through those really small periods in life, or long periods, whatever it may be. But that tight support network that you guys speak about as well too.
That's the key. Tight support. If you can have one or two friends that that you just go to them and say, hey mate, I need help. Yeah, they're not going to judge, and I think that's the case. Like, some people don't have that tight network, and that's the issue, is that they're lost and they're not going anywhere. And it's like, people listening to this, if you don't have a tight network, friends that you're close to, still be comfortable to go out and say, hey, this could be happening. It's
well, because you look at it now, as I said, we've all been in a poor headspace, and at the time you think it's never going to get better. It's sort of, this is...
It's that phone booth mentality.
Yeah.
Nothing exists outside the phone booth. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
It was just, I'm just enclosed, and there's no getting out of it. Yeah. Until I got help, Yeah. So a lot of my sort of mental health was, I'm a risk taker and high achiever, and then I was self-medicating. So I don't think I was clinically depressed. I was just, couldn't achieve what I wanted to achieve, and pressure of the game. And that's when I went down like a slippery slope. And I look back on it now, and just, there were so many things that I could have done better, and that anyone can do better. But to be able to have the conversation, and, like I said before we started, I've got old nieces and nephews that are getting older now. It's like, and social media, and, players retiring, it's important that we just keep the conversation going, really.
Yeah.
100%.
You see all our connection, the connection training groups that people are putting out together for the NRL boys now. And I speak to guys who don't turn up, and they go, I'm scared. Yeah. I'm scared of coming back and people seeing what I am or who I am now. And that's the scary part for me, is that you built this bond with guys for 10 or 20 years, playing with them, but then they're too scared to walk into another place with you or a group of guys, because they feel that they're not at that level again. Like you said,
Yeah.
up high, achieving things. They're down here and they've got a job. It's just a normal life now.
Yeah.
It's not the highs that we used to have, and it's trying to get over, breaking those barriers down. Like
It's breaking the ego down too, because you used to be able to train here, right? But you're having to come back and start that platform again. So you know how to do this.
Yeah.
You don't know how to do that because that platform was laid 20, 30 years ago. So you're like, well, like what I'm doing elastic band stuff, this is stupid. Like I should be doing that. I may as well just not do it.
fight
Like,
with that every day.
yeah, it is, but it's a mental battle. But it's so important having your mates around you and having those conversations. And if there's any message from it, it does get better. Like, you know, there's so many more memories that I've now added to life that I never thought I could. And again, just super grateful for you. And I know super grateful for you as well too, because we have these conversations a lot. But yeah, I owe a lot to mates like yourself.
Thanks, mate. It's you know what, it's those points in life where you go, well, you've done something. Like for me, that was intuition. It was just something that I don't know. I'm glad you're still here.
Yeah, thank you.
And you too,
You
right?
don't always say that. Yeah, we're all lovely moment.
But it's. And we come in here talking about footy and the life we had and all that kind of stuff, but I've realised there's so much more to life than just what we had. Like I've been out of footy 2 years now in regards to administrating everything, and God, like I didn't realise how big and wide the world is.
Life started for me after footy.
Yeah.
I thought, oh shit, this is life.
Well, you do. Well, we left school and we're hand fed.
Yeah.
Wear this, eat this,
correct.
do this. Yeah, and it's I'm lucky I've got a good wife to look after.
If you had the choice to take the same path again or never play football and go straight into career, would you?
I like this question.
It's a good question. I wouldn't change a single thing about my life, even the injuries and everything that I've. Because I feel there's a reason why. Well, I went down the path I did. Whether it was, imagine if I chose not to and we never met and you took your own life.
Yeah.
Or whatever it may be. Like there's people that I've met that I've been able to change their life and they've changed my lives because of where I've been. So I wouldn't change a single thing. I actually was questioning this exact question probably 3 or 4 weeks ago where I felt like I was getting that life crisis.
Are you going to dye your hair or get a motorbike?
What hair? I've got no hair. I'm going bald.
You going to Turkey at the end of the year?
But it was like, I remember when I first signed with Cronulla, I had a chance to go to Melbourne, and it was, and boys are going, imagine if you went to Melbourne, you would have had 4 premierships, and I listened to Karen Smith talk about what Bellamy did, and I never had regrets, but I started to think, okay, well, my regret was I really wanted to go to Melbourne, but I loved being up here, and I didn't want to get out of my comfort zone, and I regretted a lot about it, but then you take the positives, like I would never met my wife, I've got 3 lovely kids, all these type of things, so I'm reiterating my positive thoughts now, and that's, God, it's getting harder. There's little shits on some days.
Hopefully they're not watching.
No, they know, and I tell them every day.
Ren, would you take the same path?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's who I am today. I've got plenty of regrets, but I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah.
The only thing I would have changed, I would have signed with Melbourne too. It was between them and Para. I went and met with Bellyache. He's like, mate, I just love the way you play. He's like, F this and F that. We're in a cafe. And I thought, Melbourne's too far. And then I signed with Parramatta. It's just as far. And then they won the Premiership that next year. So that's the only.
Did he take you to the tan track? He drove me past the tan track, that running track?
No, we just had, I think Frank Panisi. I met with Frank Panisi, and then someone drove me around like, this is Melbourne. I'm like, oh, okay.
Where's the surf?
Yeah, where's the beach? And then, sat with Bellyache, and he was just F this, F that. I like the way you play, come to Melbourne, blah, blah, blah. And I thought, I'm a Sydney boy. I just don't want to leave.
Yeah.
So that's one regret right there.
But you think about it, keeping the same sense, like Parramatta was good, but you were able to float back to Maroubra. Like, I think it was easier for you to float back to Maroubra and still have a touch of that, what keeps you, what you've said has centered you before. You in the cold in Melbourne, I just can't say
but
it.
the traffic to Parramatta, I ended up moving out to Parramatta.
Yeah, this is true.
Did you?
I had to. My back was killing me. I was sitting in the traffic. I was like, there was the same time difference. I might as well have just got went to Melbourne. It was just as far.
Yeah.
You know?
True. I was trying to help you there.
Yeah,
but
no, it didn't work.
I just made it work.
I think we got 2 wooden spoons.
And those are things like, look at Brian Norrie, who's gone down and double repeat
Yeah.
premierships. I'm like, God, like
Yeah.
those type of things, those players have just gone on, and I do regret it. No, I think one thing Bellamy did to me was he showed me that tan track, the run track, and he goes, "We've run this every day," and I'm like,
You just get PTSD from Sticky trying to make you run.
I'm not a runner.
Yeah.
I'm not a runner. But yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it? It's like,
it is.
but I wouldn't change my path at
No.
all, not one bit,
not
not
one
even
bit.
knowing the pain that you go through or whatever, or the friendships you lose or gain, and But
No, I agree. Couldn't agree more.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the show today. I say to every guest, you could probably sit there for hours and unpack so many different yarns along the way, and there's so many crossovers. But I appreciate the little pockets that you gave us today.
Cheers.
It was awesome.
Glad you guys didn't record the thing we spoke about before.
We don't talk about that, all right?
But it's,
We were recording.
yeah. But no, thanks for having us.
All right. Big thanks to Reni, as always.
Ren.
It was always great to have you on. Ben Ross, don't forget, we are now on Spotify and YouTube. It is The Show With No Name. You can catch up on all the other episodes with some great guests that we've had on throughout the time. Thank you for joining us again. We'll be back next week.